Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, yes, depending on where you are. Thank you very much, Miloslav, for introducing the topic. And I would like to start thanking the opportunity to present this topic to you. I will describe briefly the principles of top-down uncertainty evaluation based on in-house method validation, and I will try to discuss the most challenging goals of this type of evaluation. So top-down uncertainty evaluations are very popular. If we mention specifically the ones based on in-house method validation, they are very popular, but we have to face some challenges. So they are popular due to the simplicity of the involved calculations and due to the fact that simplification do not overestimate the measurement uncertainty too much. So usually the process allows to get to measurement uncertainties that are fit for the intended use. But we have some challenge to face if you want to make reliable uncertainty evaluations and if you want to make these evaluation efficient. One of the challenges that we should face is how to model the uncertainty variation in a wide concentration range. If we have results from the analysis of different reference materials, how can we use all of them to assess trueness or bias, as you wish? How to handle bias is also a point that should be discussed. And I would like to mention that in some fields we have regulated validation designs, and some of these designs are not the best design for uncertainty evaluation, so it can be a challenge to use this information to evaluate the uncertainty. This top-down uncertainty evaluation based on in-house method validation involves quantification of three uncertainty components. Precision component, typically under intermediate precision conditions. We have the trueness or bias component that handles the systematic effects, and in some cases we have other components. One example of an additional component not covered in precision and trueness tests is the uncertainty from sampling, but this depends on how you define your measurement too. Okay, let's go to the first discussion. So one of the problems that we have to face is the fact that precision varies with the concentration. And if your method is applicable to a wide concentration interval, this variation can be relevant. Trueness should not vary so much with the concentration, but the assessment of trueness depends on the available reference materials. If you want to make sure that trueness does not vary in the concentration interval, and if your method includes an instrumental method of analysis, you should be careful about the adequacy of the calibration model. So if you use a linear calibration model, a linear regression model, you should check linearity to make sure that this trueness will not, or bias will not change significantly in the concentration interval. And so how can we simplify the modeling of precision with concentration? And by this modeling, we also model how the uncertainty varies with the concentration. How can we do that in an easy way? So we know from how the limit of quantification is defined and how limit of detection is defined that at these levels, the coefficient of variance of measurements is 10% and 33% respectively. And ideally, these limits should be estimated under intermediate precision conditions. So to make these limits stable in different days. And we also know that regardless of the analytical method, in most of the cases, the intermediate precision standard deviation slightly increases with the concentration, and it is rather constant in rather narrow concentration intervals. If we take the relative standard deviation of the intermediate precision, so the standard deviation from the intermediate precision and divide by the concentration, we know that it varies with the concentration in a rather abrupt way at low concentration levels. We know that this relative standard deviation is 30% at LOD, 10% at LOQ, and 5% at 2 LOQ. And after 2 LOQ, it becomes rather constant. So if we take that information into account, we can develop a rather pragmatic way of handling precision variation with concentration. So we just need to define a first interval, interval 1, between LOQ or LOD as you wish, and 2 LOQ. And all intermediate precision standard deviation that was estimated in this narrow interval can be pooled to estimate the precision, the intermediate precision standard deviation for interval 1. We'll have this step model there. Above 2 LOQ, we should pool available relative standard deviation of the intermediate precision, because this is the parameter that is constant. And if we want, we can even improve a little bit our model by selecting an interval between 2 LOQ and 10 LOQ, where all estimated relative standard deviation of the intermediate precision are pooled to define this first step of our precision model. And then above 10 LOQ, you pool all available information about the precision. So this is a rather cheap and nice way of developing worst case models, but they are not that will not overestimate too much the precision component. And what about trueness? When we want to assess the uncertainty from trueness, one of the challenges that we typically have to face is how to use different reference materials together to assess systematic effects. Imagine that we have n certified reference materials and proficiency test samples and spiked samples without native analytes that we use to assess this bias. We can do is to calculate with all that information overall mean recovery. So the analyte recovery will be the observed value divided by the reference value. And if we calculate a mean recovery from different reference materials, and if we make the mean of all means, we can calculate overall mean recovery. Okay, if this formula is fine to use if all these reference materials are analyzed the same number of times. If you analyze much more this certified reference material than other samples, you can change these a little bit by using a weighted mean recovery, but in most of the cases, this formula should be fine. And then, after having the overall mean recovery, we must know the standard uncertainty of this overall mean that we call trueness standard uncertainty, that is calculated by taking the square root of a sum of different terms for each reference material. That is the square of the mean recovery, the variance of recoveries, square of mean recovery again, number of recovery tests for that specific material, and then the square of the relative standard uncertainty of the reference value. This formula, you get it by applying the uncertainty propagation law to to this overall mean recovery calculation. In some cases, the different reference materials have a significantly different mean recovery, and in that case, you can decide to add an additional term. This is the variance of all mean recoveries. This is inspired in this Van project proposal, where we have this square n of number of recovery of reference materials there because of this denominator. Okay, and this can protect our uncertainty evaluation from this variability of mean recovery in different reference materials. But the trueness assessment should not stop here. After knowing the overall mean recovery and after knowing the respective uncertainty, we have to decide if the overall mean is meteorologically different from the ideal 100% value using this upgraded t-test. We call it upgraded because we have the absolute value of 1 minus overall mean divided by a standard uncertainty and not a standard deviation. So this is a meteorological assessment, not a statistical assessment. If this term is smaller or equal than 2, so we can say that the overall mean is approximately equivalent to 100%, and the results do not need to be correct for recovery. And for the subsequent calculations, you can assume that the overall mean is equal to 1. On the other hand, if this condition is not valid, the result should be corrected for the observed recovery by multiplying by or by dividing by the overall mean recovery. And this mean recovery must be considered in the subsequent combination of uncertainty components. And now we just need to combine the uncertainty components. Typically, we divide our analytical interval in interval 1, okay, that is typically between LOQ or LOD and 2 LOQ, and second interval that is above 2 LOQ, that is the second interval, okay. And the standard or the expanded uncertainty for measurements in interval 1 will be the coverage factor times the square of the determinate precision standard deviation for interval 1. Here we have the sample concentration correct or incorrect for recovery, depending on the t-test, the standard uncertainty for trueness, and here you have the overall mean that can be 1 or the observed overall mean depending on the t-test. For the second interval, you combine the uncertainty components as relative components. So you have the square of the relative intermediate precision standard deviation for interval 2. You have here the relative trueness uncertainty. And since this is a relative combined uncertainty, we have to multiply by the sample concentration and the expansion factor to get our uncertainty. To exemplify how it is applied, let me give you examples from Carla Palma paper for determination of chromium and other elements in sediments, where for 95% confidence level intervals, so for interval 1, we have from 1.5 to 10, this is 2 LOQ, 2 times LOQ. So we have an expanded uncertainty of 2 times. This is the square of the intermediate precision standard deviation. This is the trueness standard uncertainty, the overall mean recovery, and the sample result, in this case, corrected for recovery. And for interval 2, we have these relative terms for precision and for the trueness, and the sample result corrected for recovery. If we calculate or use this formula to evaluate the uncertainty from measurements corrected for recovery at 2 times limit of quantification, 10 million per kilogram or 10 times more, we get expanded uncertainties of 1.3 and 30. Some years ago, we had a proposal from Nortest how to handle the trueness or the bias uncertainty component, and this alternative way aimed at simplifying and managing the bias in a different way, where that t-test that I mentioned previously is not performed. This approach tends to overestimate measurement uncertainty if the bias is relevant, but avoids the need to decide to correct or not to correct for a recovery. In this approach, and if I used exactly the same notation from the previous example, the trueness uncertainty will be the overall mean times 2 terms. This first term is the square root, is the root mean square of the relative errors. Okay, we can express the relative errors using mean recovery data. So this is the mean recovery for each reference material minus 1, and this is so the relative mean error for the analysis of that reference material, number of reference materials. And here we have the mean of the square of the relative standard uncertainty of the reference values for different reference materials. If we use this approach, the combination of this component with the precision component is similar to the described previously. So we just need to use the same formula. The difference is that in this case, the sample will never be corrected for recovery. Let's apply this to the example to the chromium, total chromium determination in sediments, published by Carla Palman et al. And if we use that for interval 1 and for interval 2, so we have expansion factor, precision component. The trueness component here will be larger. It is 4.5%. And the same for interval 2. If we apply this to measurements at 2 LOQ and 10 times more, we get an expanded uncertainty of 1.6 and 16. So the uncertainty increased about 33% by this simplified way of handling the bias. I also would like to take a few slides or to discuss another challenge that can be faced by these in-house top-down uncertainty evaluations. In some fields, you have regulated method validation design. So they tell you exactly how to validate your method, the experiments that you have to do. And the problem is that some of this data design is challenging for measurement uncertainty evaluation. We have some synchronisms. Some of the data is collected in a way that it is correlated. There is some synchronism, some correlation between data that is difficult to handle for our uncertainty evaluation. And to exemplify such a situation, we have here the determination of palladium in pharmaceutical products by ICP-MS. You know, you can have palladium in our medicines because they use it in catalysts. And if you validate these methods, according to ICH or USP guidelines, typically, so on day 1, you analyze a sample, a real sample that can have native analyte, and you analyze it in repeatedly conditions, same day. And in that day, you spike that sample at 3 mass fractions, in this case mass fractions, and you analyze it same day, everything in the same day. And in the second day, you analyze the same sample with native analyte, but after getting a different spiking. And it can be challenging to use this data to estimate nitrate precision. And when you calculate analyte recovery from day one data, so we have this recovery is not affected by between day precision. But when you handle the results from the second day, since they rely on native determination from the first day, there is a between day precision component there affecting the process, which make the uncertainty evaluation more challenging, because you want to know how good is your single analysis, and any correlation from method validation should not affect our goal. So this was we have done a work in this area. So this was a collaboration with David Mild and Thomas. I will not try to pronounce his name, and other colleagues. That so we discuss exactly how challenging can be to use a specific validation design for the uncertainty evaluation, and we discuss the impact of that uncertainty in conformity assessments. So one of the sentences that is mentioned in this paper is that if we can, we should try to make the measurement uncertainty evaluation to adapt the evaluation to the experimental data, and not the other way around. If we know very well how the measurement process, we can adapt to our experimental design and perform adequate uncertainty evaluations, and we don't need to force nothing at the lab. Let me close this presentation with final remarks. So, top-down uncertainty evaluations are pragmatic but challenging. If you know, by knowing how precision varies with concentration, we can define very pragmatic ways of handling how precision varies with concentration. The way bias is managed affects measurement uncertainty, we all know that, and we can adapt to the validation design. So let me close by, first of all, thanking the Organization Committee from Prague for allowing me to present this work, and from Prague to all of you. Thank you very much for your attention.